You've reached 30, and suddenly everything that once felt important no longer holds the same weight. The titles you chased, the milestones you hoped to reach, the promises you believed would fix everything, they're all there now. Some achieved, others not quite. But the haunting part is the same feeling. Something's still missing. And that emptiness can't be explained with logic, nor filled with a busy schedule. It's as if your soul is trying to speak, but is constantly ignored by the body's rush. You have a job, maybe a family, a routine that runs as it should, but when your head hits the pillow, the silence screams louder than any notification. And that scream, it's more than sadness, more than doubt, it's a thirst for meaning. Viktor Frankl, who witnessed the darkest side of humanity in concentration camps, said it's not pain that destroys us, it's pain without purpose. It's not the lack of time, money, or even love that corrodes the human spirit. It's the absence of a deeper reason to wake up each morning. Think about it. For most of your life, you followed a script. School, college, job. Someone handed you a map and you followed it. But at 30, something shifts. It's as if your inner GPS goes silent. You're still driving, but suddenly, you don't know where you're going. The car keeps moving, but inside, everything feels suspended. This video is born from that inner pause, from the question that disturbs, yet also sets you free. What is your soul trying to say when it screams for meaning, and how can you listen before the scream turns into despair? Let's walk through this together.
1. The silent collapse of performance, when making it is no longer enough. There comes a moment, usually around the age of 30, when the soul starts to disobey the metrics the world celebrates. You look around and realize that in a way, you've made it. You've achieved some goals, maybe you have stability, recognition, or at least you're on your way there. But inside, something burns, not with excitement, but with emptiness. It's hard to explain this rupture, because it happens in silence. You're functioning, you're producing, you're delivering, but something within you is being lost, as if the soul were slipping out of the body, leaving only the performance behind. This feeling isn't new. Solomon himself, the wisest and most powerful man of his time, wrote in Ecclesiastes, "Everything is meaningless." He had it all: power, wealth, pleasure, fame, and in the end, he discovered none of it sustained the soul. That success, without meaning, is just a beautiful wrapping for a disguised exhaustion. At 30, success begins to show its cracks. What once felt like purpose now weighs like obligation. And it's not about being ungrateful. It's about maturity. The soul is growing, and like any living thing, it starts to reject what no longer feeds it. This collapse doesn't have to be the end. It can be the beginning, but only if you have the courage to listen to what's behind the restlessness. Because when making it is no longer enough, it's a sign your soul is calling you to something greater, something deeper, something meaningful.
2. The crisis of accumulated comparison, the invisible poison that grows over time. At 30, you're not just dealing with the choices you made. You're carrying the silent weight of the ones you didn't, and of the lives you observe from afar. Comparison, which seemed like a mild discomfort in your 20s, now grows louder. It builds up, it seeps in, and turns into an invisible poison. You start measuring your days not by what God is forming within you, but by what others already seem to have achieved. The friend who found success, the colleague who got married, the person who seems to have found a clear purpose while you're still trying to figure out where your voice fits. The human brain wasn't designed to process so many parallel lives at once. Neuroscience shows that constant comparison activates threat zones, as if someone else's happiness were a warning sign of your personal failure. As if each victory of the other were a silent accusation against your delay. And it hurts even more when you carry faith, because now, along with doubt, comes spiritual guilt. Am I living in sin? Am I outside God's plan? Comparison disorients the soul. It weakens your inner listening and distorts the way you see yourself before God. But there's a difference between inspiration and oppression. It's one thing to admire someone who's further along. It's another to turn that admiration into a weapon against yourself. Spiritual maturity begins when you recognize this poison and choose to replace it with the gratitude of someone who knows they're still under construction. At 30, the soul doesn't want to run faster. It wants to walk in truth. And truth begins when you stop looking outward and begin to look inward with more compassion.
3. The urgency of reconstruction. You can't postpone your identity any longer. There comes a subtle but decisive moment when life stops asking what you do and starts demanding who you truly are. And this moment usually arrives around the age of 30. It's not about a specific number, but about an inner turning point when the masks start to weigh heavy and external applause no longer fills the inner emptiness. It's as if the soul says, enough of surviving through the roles you learned to play. Because up to this point, much of what you built may have been necessary, but not necessarily true. You followed the current, you adapted, you created acceptable versions of yourself to fit in where it felt safe. But now, you can no longer postpone the truth. This is the age of reconstruction, the gentle demolition of everything that was built just to please, to belong, to avoid abandonment. It's the symbolic end of emotional adolescence. It's when Ephesians 4:14 through 15 rings louder, to no longer be tossed by every wind, but to grow in maturity, in identity, in truth. But rebuilding is harder than starting fresh, because it involves pain. It involves letting go of versions of yourself that once worked, and it involves facing the fact that what once looked like faith might have just been fear in disguise, that what seemed like stability was just comfortable resignation. Reconstruction requires courage, it requires silence, and it requires the humility to ask, what do I need to unbuild in myself so that the true self, shaped by God, has room to be born? This is not an identity crisis, it's the birth of identity. And only those brave enough to lose what they are not finally come face to face with who they really are.
4. The beginning of true purpose. Meaning isn't found, it's built upon truth. Many people reach their 30s expecting a sudden revelation from heaven, as if purpose would drop into their lap, delivered by angels and signed by God. But that's not how purpose is born. You don't find it like someone stumbling upon a forgotten object on the ground. Purpose is built with faithfulness, with truth, with time. It's like the work of a potter. The raw material is there, but it only takes shape as it yields to the hands that mold it. And often, that raw material is us, broken, rigid, fragmented, being remade on the invisible wheel of daily life. Purpose doesn't appear before everything begins. It emerges in the midst of formation. It's while God is molding that meaning starts to rise. The truth is, real purpose is never self-centered. It's always revealed at the intersection of your gifts, your wounds, and your faith. It's when you begin to realize that what hurt you the most may actually be what best equips you to heal. That what you do effortlessly might indeed be a gift,
but it only becomes a calling when you offer it to others. And that changes everything, because suddenly the question is no longer, what is my purpose, but where can I contribute with who I am? Personal fulfillment stops being the goal and becomes the byproduct of a life that gives, that serves, that loves, that moves for something greater than itself. You're not going to wake up one day and find your purpose in a golden envelope, but you can start today, building it through small, honest decisions. Because true purpose is the child of everyday faithfulness. And in that quiet construction, the soul begins to find rest.
At 30, the soul's cry is not a mistake. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a failure in your life plan. It's a calling. A silent yet persistent calling to go beyond the surface. To stop merely surviving and start living with purpose. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world." And maybe that's exactly what you're feeling right now. A longing that neither success, nor affection, nor material security can silence. A yearning not for more, but for something true. This discomfort may feel unsettling, but what if it's God trying to move you? What if it's not the end of something, but the beginning? The beginning of leaving behind automatic survival and stepping into an intentional life, with direction, with meaning, with faith. Because deep down, the soul doesn't cry for nothing. It cries when it's trapped. It cries when it's forgotten. It cries when it needs to be heard. And the question is, will you numb this cry with distractions, or will you listen with courage and start responding with truth? At 30, you may not have all the answers, but you already have the right question. And that is already a beginning.